Good afternoon today. I hope you are fine. Today, we want to learn a lesson in geography. We are supposed to start a new topic. It's called industry. Last time we finished the topic called energy. I hope all of you are fine. So we can begin. What is industry? Industry is any form of an economic activity through which people produce goods and services for their own consumption. We find that we may grow cash crops, but we have to process the cash crops in a form that can be consumed easily by people, in a form that makes people happy when they are consuming the product. For example, we have tea. When it grows, it's green. When the farmer gets tea from the farm, it's green leaves. But then it has to undergo a certain activity, that it has to be processed in a form that it can be consumed. So this form of an economic activity in which people produce goods and services for their own consumption is what we refer to as industry. It doesn't matter if it is only tea, but it can be any other form. Like we can produce instead we can produce maize. We farm maize, and then we take maize in the factory so that uh, it can be processed into flour. So that act of an economic activity is what you refer to as industry. We also going to define another term called industrialization. And industrialization is the process whereby a country establishes manufacturing industries. For example, we can establish an industry in a place where we have certain types of raw materials, and in another place where we have other types of raw materials. In this case, we find that a country which establishes manufacturing industries in different regions and it has got amalgamate of industry, that country is referred to as industrialized. So a country is referred to as industrialized when the production of uh, manufactured goods is the main economic activity in that country. So you find that less industrialized countries mainly produce agricultural raw materials. Agricultural raw materials. So we find that these countries only maybe export raw materials. We say that these countries are less industrialized. But in the event that a country exports processed goods which have undergone industrialization, uh, we say that those countries are industrialized countries. So those are two definitions, key definitions in this topic called industry. And then we can now move forward and discuss some of the factors that influence the location and development of industry, maybe in a region, maybe in a location, or in a country, or in a continent. So there are certain factors that influence the location and development of industries. One factor is availability of raw materials. Availability of raw materials. Me and you know that an industry cannot be established in a place where there are no raw materials. In most cases, we find that industries are always located near resources of raw materials to reduce transportation costs. So we find that if it is tea, an industry will be located where tea is grown, so that it reduces transportation costs. If it's a sugar milling company, it is located in sugar growing areas, mostly in urban areas. Uh, we have airports and oil refineries. At the at the coastal area, we also have oil refineries because it is expensive to transport oil in bulk in the inland areas of a country. So basically, you find that industries are always located in places where we have raw materials, close to that place where we have raw materials to reduce transportation costs. Good. They also establish where there is ready source of raw material uh, in order for them to be economically viable. For example, we have refineries at the coast. Why? It is because it's a ready source of raw material because we import crude oil. So when you import crude oil, uh, it is only economically viable to refine the oil close to where the cost is. The cost, instead of transporting crude oil uh, in the inland areas, it is quite expensive. It is quite expensive to transport. But when it is refined now, it is put into use, it becomes cheaper. Another factor influencing the location and development of industry, we have power, electricity. Industries are always located near the main power supply so that it reduces the cost of transmitting the power. We can give a good example. We have those industries in Jinja town, in Uganda. Those industries are near the Owen Falls Dam. Why? It's to reduce the cost of transporting the transmitting the power. To reduce the cost of transmitting power. Another factor uh, that influence the location and development of industry is availability of transport and communication. Now, transport and communication, we're talking about uh, roads, railways, talking about air transport. Uh, so, in talking about availability, we find that milk processing plant or industry, mm, like the KCC industry or Brookside industries that process milk, we find that the road network has to be good for the farmer to transport milk to the plant. And when the milk is processed, the road network has to be good for the finished product to be transported to the market. So we find that road, roads contribute contribute greatly the development of industries, the location of industries. Now, when you're talking about also the means of communication and transport, these means of communication and transport have to be well developed. Uh, they have to be well developed to lower the transportation costs. When the roads are good, it is efficient to transport the goods and consume little fuel to transport the goods in a road network which is good rather than a road which is uh, unworthy. So that is transport and communication. Some industries are located close to the airports, especially these industries which deal with perishable goods like the flour industries. So these industries are located close to the airport so that when the goods have to be taken to the market, uh, they catch up with the quickest flight as much as possible and transport the goods to the market. Another factor that influences the location and development of industries is market. Plant in an area which is less populated, an area which is less populated, because the essence of coming up with industries is to come up with finished goods which can be consumed by people. Now it cannot be consumed by one person, neither two, but it can be consumed by quite large number of people, talking about 1 million, 2 million, 3 million people. So we always establish industries in areas which are densely populated so that they can provide a suitable market. More so in urban areas, or in urban areas in the Kenyan islands, the lake region, and the coastal strip. In Kenya, these are regions which are densely populated. Urban areas, Kenyan highlands, the lake region, and the coastal strip. You find that in these regions, industries are located. These industries are in these regions. Why? It is because that these regions are densely populated, and the population offers ready market for the finished goods that is processed from the industry. Industries are also located near markets due to the nature of goods. For example, when the goods are perishable, easily perishable. For example, we have bread and the dairy products. You know that bread, dairy products, you're talking about milk, yogurt, and the creams, the creams that people consume on daily uh, basis. Uh, at the same time, at the same time, uh, we